Hello and welcome to the AfterBurners podcast. I'm your host Samuel Oni, and this is episode 23. With me is Wes Spearman. Wes, how are you today?
Yeah, pretty good. As a busy day working on the Paralympics. Literally only just finished about 10 minutes ago. But yeah, I'm pretty good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Now, it's racing returned after 3 weeks. We were
Wow,
expecting to be
wow.
watching.
You say racing return, but yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
racing kind of returned.
In quotation marks, returned.
Yes, yes, yes. However, it wasn't to be as it was raining heavily in Belgium at Spa, and it was raining so bad that even BBC had to wait 3 hours until you know what could have happened. So, well, whereas there was no racing, and what's your thoughts on that?
Uh, well, I think the decision not to race, as in to sort of not have any green flag racing at all, was the right one because we don't want another. I mean, we saw on the Saturday, I think it was it W Series were racing. There was this awful like
Yeah,
3-4 car pileup at Eau Rouge and
six,
Raidillon, 6 car pileup. Yeah.
six cars.
Yeah, and then obviously later on that day we had Norris's high speed crash as well at Raidillon as well into the barriers, similar to where Antoine Hubert lost his life a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
I think it was pretty close to 2 years to the day that Hubert lost his life as well. So
31st of
yeah,
August, I believe.
31st of August. So yeah, yesterday as we're recording this on the 1st of September. Um, so I think that probably played a part in the stewards and Michael Massey deciding just to try and keep sort of pushing back the race to try and get some sort of race at the end of the day before before it got too dark. But I think on the whole, it was the right decision not to have any full speed racing because you just could not see a thing at all.
Of course.
I mean, Max was saying, "Oh yeah, it's all right," but then he's at the front of the pack. If you're someone um, like one of the Ferraris, for example, Bottas starting in 13th, well, even at the back of the pack, you, you just would not be able to see a thing at all. And yeah, the cars have the flashing red lights on the back for when they're out of, I think it's out of ERS or out of electrical energy or something like that. And also they flash in the rain as well, just to give some sort of idea as to where the car is ahead of the driver behind. But you couldn't even see that. That's how
Yeah.
wet it was at Spa. And I think a lot of people think going into the weekend, oh, a bit of rain at Spa. It was a wet qualifying session. Russell P2. I'm sure we'll get onto that a bit later. But we could have
Brilliant.
a wet
Brilliant.
race. Could have a wet race.
Brilliant.
Could spice up the championship a little bit, but yeah, it was just far too wet for
Yeah.
any racing, and it's a good job it didn't because, as I said, not just the crashes that we had earlier on in the race weekend, but we don't want. I think it was Spa 1998 where about half the grid was taken out within the first couple of corners, and then they had to essentially restart the race a few hours later. And even then, there were just so many accidents and crashes and drivers being forced to retire.
Mm.
I think it was the one where David Coulthard was going slightly slowly on one of the straights. Then Michael Schumacher racing behind and going full speed, couldn't see, and then smacked into the back of him, and both of the both drivers had to retire.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, going
Now,
off on a bit of a tangent, but yeah, right decision not to race.
yeah, of course. Now, what the biggest issue about Spa, I'm sure everybody knows, is Eau Rouge and Raidillon. And again, with as seen in the W series, both corners, well, straights, I should say, they were called into question. Now, how dangerous are those corners, as we all know, watching it in F1?
Um, but I don't know if are they really corners. I mean, they don't. The drivers don't lift at all in the dry. It's just flat out down Eau Rouge in the left-handed Eau Rouge and then up the hill again
Oh yeah,
into Raidillon. And in the wet, that is just becomes so slippery because there's probably a slight pool of water as well at the bottom of the hill because of how gravity works. So, yeah, I mean, we've seen it so many times um, through a region radio. And yes, it looks absolutely awesome when I think it was Alonso on Mark Webber in the 2010s. Alonso just coming out of the pits, and then one goes round the outside of the other, and it just looks so good. Looks so smooth as well. I think Bottas did it on Albon as well last year. No, 2 years ago. It's a great spectacle, but it is very dangerous. And a lot of people over the course of the weekend were saying, should they make changes to it? Should they whether
barriers
try
up,
and sorry, what was that?
barriers.
Barrier, yeah, some sort of I suppose just try and make the corner less dangerous if you do crash because it's probably one of the fastest corners in Formula One, certainly in the dry.
Yeah,
Um, so and to have just that essentially tire wall at um, Raidillon, the top of Raidillon, where a lot of the drivers have gone off. It's where Norris crashed. It's where Hubert lost his life. Where he crashed with Juan Manuel Correa, where the W Series crashed as well. So to have some sort of something to slow them down before they do eventually hit the wall, something probably should be done because you can't just go into weekend at Spa. Yes, it's a great track. I know we both love Spa and love drivers racing around there, but it gets to a point where you feel is that corner safe for drivers with the speed these cars are going and the skills of the drivers. Yes, they're good, but I mean, if a tire goes or something, if you try and go full speed when on worn tires, or if there's rain and you're not sure how much grip you have, then something's not going to end well, and it usually is a driver crashing. And obviously, in the case of Hubert, very sadly being killed. And again, we've seen it before with Bianchi. I know it was at Suzuka, but again in the wet, I know that was a bit of a different circumstance when they had a tractor on the circuit. But you don't want to see fatalities in any sport, not just F1. So, and
yeah,
you don't want to see drivers being injured. Obviously, Norris went to hospital
yeah,
after his crash in qualifying, and some of the W Series drivers did as well. And you don't want to see that at all. So, whether something will be done for next year, I don't know. But I think just for the safety of the drivers, something needs to be done. Whether they try and slow the corner down like they've done at Imola, for example, where they put in chicanes on what was basically a continuous sort of straight um, after Senna was killed. They've tried to slow the track down. So whether they'll think about doing that somehow at Spa, or whether they'll just have some sort of runoff, whether it be gravel, whether it be like the sort of coloured strips we see at Paul Ricard, whether it's just grass. Yeah, something should really be done, in my opinion, just to try and make it safer, if any, whether it's in the dry or whether it's in the wet.
yeah, yeah. Agreed. And as the Grand Prix was delayed, meaning no racing for a while, we especially on the BBC radio with Jack Nichols, I thought him and the team were quite good, keeping us entertained. It was quite nice to know, quite nice to listen in to what drivers were doing while the race was trying to be resolved. Drivers in the paddocks drinking tea, eating, or stuff like that. Um, and I believe, I think someone ordered sausages. I didn't quite
Yeah,
remember who it was,
yeah.
but
Pierre Gasly, I think, came over the radio and I can't remember what his team said, but I think Gasly said he wanted some sausages or something like that. And then also some lights for the track because it was getting dark. But yeah, there was just I mean, if you tuned in over on Twitter really for for the race on Sunday, then you saw, was it Sebastian Vettel and one of the Aston Martin mechanics playing football with Mick Schumacher and a Haas mechanic in the
Oh,
garage. There was Lando Norris sleeping. Daniel Ricciardo trying to do a Mexican wave with the crowd to try and keep them entertained. Another one I saw was Ricciardo sort of trying this wrestling move on one of his engineers who was sitting down.
oh, really?
Um, yeah. Yeah, there was just loads of just weird things that the drivers did just to keep themselves entertained. Because
Yeah,
I mean, as you know, and some of our listeners may know that I play cricket. So whenever there's a rain delay, you just got to try and keep yourself entertained, whether it
keep
be
yourself. Yeah,
changing room cricket, a bit of that.
yeah,
Um, yeah, the driver. Yeah, I mean, sleeping is probably. I'm with Lando Norris. I'd probably just to go and have a nap as well. To be
yeah.
honest,
I think Charles
if you know you're
Leclerc or
not going to be
Carlos Sainz
racing
was
for,
doing that as
yeah,
well. Yeah,
if you know you're not going to be racing for a while, then why not have
of
a
course.
little sleep, wake up feeling refreshed, ready and raring to go. But
Yeah,
I would have gone with Gasly as well. Some sausages would have been quite nice.
yeah. Mm. Yeah, food is always quite nice. And well, when Michael Massey and the team decided to, you know, resolve the race issue, well, it was uh 2 laps behind the safety car in heavy rain, and the first ever introduction of half points for drivers in the top 10. Now, 2 laps behind the safety car. Did you know it would be this would then lead to the short being the shortest ever race in F1 history?
Wow, I mean, I can't remember what the record was before that.
The
Was it
record
20 minutes at
was
Australia or something?
yeah, the record was 1998 Australia, I think. Yeah, Australia Grand Prix. I
Hmm,
think it was uh 3 minutes 27.
that can't have been it. That must have been 3 minutes 20. Must have been Spa this year.
Yeah,
Australia have got through I think a decent amount of that. I think it was
or
3 minutes
maybe like
or 12,
20
20
minutes or
laps,
something.
something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
sorry, my
Um,
bad.
but wow, can you call it a race at Spa? Really? If you're not allowed to overtake,
I almost thought it
then
was a warm-up lap with the two
well,
laps.
I think it sort of was in the end because what I heard and saw from the BBC, I was listening into the radio as well on my trip home from Newcastle, um, and I saw on the BBC Sport app, the drivers all get going at, what was it, about 6:15 or 5:15, and they say, oh yeah, they'll do a couple laps behind the safety car, report back to Massey, the stewards, about the conditions, whether they feel it's okay to go racing. And then they'll try and do something after that. But obviously, as we know now, the conditions were just way too poor for any racing to get underway. But can they really award points for something like that? I mean,
I probably don't think they should have
no,
awarded points, to be honest. No.
no, definitely not, because it's just not a race. It's just not racing. It's, if you can't overtake, how is it a race? It's not competitive. Just driving behind the safety car, keeping your position, keeping your deltas and stuff. You can't award points for that. A procession behind the safety car just to make sure it's safe to go out. It's like a formation lap. It was a couple of
Yeah.
formation laps, sort of. How can you award points for that? I mean, at the end of the day, yes, it's half points. It's not like Verstappen's getting 25 points and reclaiming the lead of the championship, but he's still getting, was it 17 and a half for 2 laps driving at
12 and a
less,
half.
yeah, 12 and a half. Oh yeah, yeah, my maths is completely wrong there. 12 and a half points driving probably less than 100 miles an hour behind a safety car with no competition whatsoever. That's just completely wrong of Formula One and the FIA to award points for that. If anything, award points off qualifying, I would have been more okay with. But I mean, I suppose at the end of the day, that's sort of what they did. But to call it a race and be like, oh yeah, that's a race, 2 laps behind the safety car, can't overtake, is some points. It's just no, that's wrong,
N- No,
completely wrong in my eyes.
I think maybe no, not maybe. They should have probably classed it as null and void,
Yeah, 100%,
or
100% agree with you.
in the most unlikeliest of things, uh, you know, move it for another date, but that would mean rejuggling the whole F1 calendar. But yeah, classing it null and void, as in no race, should have probably been the way to go.
Yeah, definitely, because as I've said obviously a few times this episode, it was too wet to race. The drivers were saying, I think a few of them said, well, the conditions at the start are actually better than what they actually ended up driving in at the end. Um, and yet they still didn't go racing when the conditions were at their supposed best. So they should have just nullified it, null and void, as you say. No points for the weekend. Scrap the race.
Yeah.
Call it off. Make sure everyone's safe. There's no more crashes. Give the
Hmm.
fans a refund as well. Another main thing. I think Hamilton said that as well. Because to have 2 laps behind a safety car and points awarded, affecting the championship essentially is just, I think Hamilton called it and Alonso called it a farce, because that's exactly what it was. It's just completely wrong of Formula One and the FIA to give points for it, call it a race, and I mean hopefully the fans get some sort of refund. Hopefully a
Yeah.
full refund for that, because tickets
Mm,
aren't cheap
they're
to go
not.
to a
Imagine
Grand
all
Prix.
those people sitting there outside on the stands in the rain.
I mean, fair
That's
play to them for staying that long,
yeah,
because I'm not sure I would have done.
yeah.
Just
Bi-
hours and hours of. I mean, there's not any real shelter either,
No,
because it's sort of in the woods, isn't it? So
yeah,
you
oh,
just sat there with your tent or with your umbrella or and your deck chair on the hill at the source or something, and just the only entertainment you got is maybe some shots on the TV screens of the drivers playing football like Vettel and Schumacher did or
yeah,
something, or Ricardo trying to do a Mexican wave. If that's the only entertainment you've got, plus whatever you
yeah,
listen to on the radio as well, then it's yeah, you're just not saying you're not getting your money's worth at all at the
yeah.
end of the day. So
Exact.
I mean, the Formula One released a statement earlier on Twitter saying that they'll look for some sort of solution, and for me, there is no other solution there can be than giving the fans a full refund, or maybe to sort of defer their tickets for next year's race. That could
That's a
also be a
shout.
solution, but
Yeah,
because I think the cheapest tickets you could get were something like €100, which off the top of my head is around about 80 or £90, which again isn't cheap. If you're coming from the UK as well, you've got to factor in transport accommodation to get there as well. So which again obviously won't be cheap. So yeah, the fans need their money back for sure.
yeah, yeah. And one more thing before we move on to the Dutch Grand Prix, I want to talk about George Russell in the Williams. Can we just talk about his qualifying lap, please? Because well, Toto Wolf, please, if you're listening, sign George
I
Russell.
know, just announce it already. Like, please. It's just so good. Because I watched the highlights back Saturday evening, and it's the way he drove, and Latifi as well. To be fair, they were first and
Yeah,
second in Q1 at one
yeah,
point on the inters when everyone else had gone out on the wet. Just ridiculous scenes. I think Norris was on pole as well at one point.
yeah, it
Um,
was. Yeah,
but for oh, it's a Williams, for crying out loud. It's the
a
second worst
Williams
car.
car.
It's the second worst car on the grid, and George Russell has got it into P2. Yes, it's in the wet, which does change things up a bit, but he's beaten Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world
He's
champion,
beaten
one of the best
three.
drivers in the rain.
He's beaten three world champions
Yeah,
to P2, including
well,
Fernando Alonso.
four world champions. You got
Oh,
Hamilton,
oh,
Vettel, Alonso, and Raikkonen.
oh,
No, Raikkonen's
four.
in an Alfa Romeo. It's not really
Yeah,
competitive, but he was only 3 tenths off Verstappen. as well. Verstappen
That's
got
how
pole on
close
his
it
last lap,
was.
gone, yeah, just 0.3 of a second. That's all. So it's, I mean, it's just an incredible lap from Russell. And yeah, I suppose he's known a bit as Mr. Saturday. He puts in a stellar qualifying lap, but then doesn't quite hold on to it in the race. But he
Right.
mostly did that
Quick
weekend
question.
because they couldn't overtake.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
test you. When was the last time Williams got a podium
Oh, blimey.
in Formula One?
Oh.
Just the year.
Um,
And I'll give you an extra point if you can guess the race or the
ooh.
Grand Prix.
I think it's got to be before 2016 when Williams were actually sort of competitive. Um, I I think I remember seeing it, but I'm not sure. Was it
All right, all right, all
2014?
right. Monza. I think it was Monza. Was it
Was it
Monza?
Monza?
I think it was Monza. Yeah, Monza.
Was it 2014 with Bottas?
Yes, I think.
You don't
Even
know, do
I'm
you?
not sure.
Just a complete guess. Was that in qualified or in the race?
I
That
think.
would have been
I think it
yeah,
was in the
podium
race.
in the race. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it rings a bell.
Mm.
2014 about yeah. We'll have to look that up. I have to double check after we finish
Yeah,
recording.
but yeah, great effort from George Russell, and okay, okay. One more thing before we move on to Dutch Grand Prix. Predict your 2022 drivers lineup. So Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, etc., etc.
Yeah, I think it was WTF1 put out a tweet, didn't they? Because obviously certain drivers on the grid already have um sort of a contract for next year. So I think both Haas drivers are in contract for next year as well.
Yep.
I think is Hamilton in contract, or I'm
I
not too
think he's
sure. I
on a
can't remember.
one-year
I can't remember
contract.
what they put out.
He's signed a
So
one-year contract.
you go first because I need to find my tweet because I can't remember
Right.
who I said now. I think you put it
I'm gonna
on our
find
little
my
WhatsApp
I'm
chat.
gonna find my tweet as well. But I did say Hamilton. Right. Here we go.
I think we both went Hamilton.
Yeah.
Providing he's out of contract at the end of this year, we both went Hamilton. I know that.
Right then.
I think we both went the
Mercedes.
same Mercedes drivers actually.
Yeah. Right. Mercedes. Lewis Hamilton and George Russell for 2022. Red Bull Racing, Verstappen and Perez. Perez signed a new contracts.
Yeah.
McLaren, Norris and Ricciardo. Aston Martin, Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll. I couldn't really see anyone else
No,
like that
I
one
mean, yeah,
changing.
Stroll's out of contract, but he's not going anywhere, is he? Let's be real.
No. Alpine, Esteban Ocon and Fernando Alonso. Ferrari, Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz. Right. As
This is where
Aston
things get
Martin.
interesting, sort of at the
Yeah, it
back of
does.
the
Yeah.
grid.
AlphaTauri. Pierre Gasly is staying.
Yeah,
However, Alex Albon comes in
he comes
for
back.
Yuki Tsunoda. Yeah, he comes
Interesting.
back, replacing Yuki Tsunoda. Um, my reason purely because I don't know, maybe being a bit harsh, but Yuki Tsunoda hasn't lived up to well his expect his performances haven't been great.
Yeah,
It's
he
only
had a decent start. He got points in his first race, but I
Bahrain,
don't
yeah.
really remember him doing anything after that or doing
No,
much after that, to be honest.
I mean he's been finishing and starting towards the back of the grid like 16th, 17th. So that's my reason for bringing back Alex Albon. So and Albon has been doing quite well in the DTM
Yeah,
series.
I think he won a race in DTM.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's that. Ex- Excuse me. Alfa Romeo, Alfa Romeo, Valtteri Bottas. Valtteri Bottas, I think he will stay in Formula One. He'll stay in Formula One, but go
Yeah,
to Alfa Romeo, and he will partner Antonio Giovinazzi. So Giovinazzi will be the second driver, So which means Kimi Raikkonen retired.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's just a prediction.
Well, he's not on the he's not in he's not going to race
He's
for
not on
Haas
the
or
grid.
Williams, is he?
Nope. And in brackets, I've also put um, Mick Schumacher to be at Alfa Romeo in 2023. I think
Interesting.
2 years at Haas will probably get him into grips with the car, get him settled into F1, and really push. So yeah, that's that. Then Haas, as we've said, Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin, and Williams, Nicholas Latifi, and Jack Aiken. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Aitken,
Aiken.
Aitken, one of those.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, are you reading my tweet? Because that sounds awful. We've both picked very similar
Yeah.
driver
I
lineups.
I
I think
think
there's one or two changes between us, but they are
yeah,
very, very similar.
very. I admit I did change it a bit. I did
I
change
was
it
going
a
to say
bit.
that's not the tweet you sent me.
No, no, I did change it a bit because originally I put for Alfa Romeo, I thought Raikkonen and Gasly were gonna stay. Raikkonen and Giovinazzi were gonna stay together, but I thought Raikkonen is kind of getting old now, 42, 43. I mean, no disrespect, but yeah.
Yeah,
So
give someone else a go, sort of time.
exactly, exactly. Go on, give us your
Right. So yeah, as I said, a lot of this will be very similar. So Mercedes, I've gone Hamilton and Russell as well. I just don't see Bottas sort of keeping that seat after the performances Russell has put in this year.
Toto announce Russell,
Announce it.
please.
Red Bull obviously got Verstappen and Perez both in contract. McLaren, Norris, and Ricardo as well, both in contract. Aston Martin, Vettel, Stroll again. Vettel's in contract. Stroll isn't going anywhere at all. Alpine, Ocon, Alonso again. Both of those are in contract. Same with Ferrari, Leclerc, and Sainz. AlphaTauri, I've kept the same driver lineup of Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda. I don't think AlphaTauri will drop Tsunoda. Yes, he's had a mixed year. I think it'll be fairly safe to say, but I don't think they'll drop a driver. I mean, he's only 20 years old for that, so I think he's definitely someone that Red Bull are perhaps looking to develop over a few years, and then I think when Perez goes, if and when Perez goes, then Gasly will jump up to Red Bull, and then Tsunoda will become the number one driver for AlphaTauri for maybe another couple of years, and then maybe bring in someone like Alex Albon back, perhaps, or another,
Schwartzman.
or, or someone else. Yeah, Schwartzman, someone else in the Red Bull Driver Academy. To jump him into F1 in maybe 4 or 5 years. Alfa Romeo. I think Alfa Romeo is probably one of the more interesting sort of teams for this driver lineup next year because I've gone Valtteri Bottas for Alfa Romeo and a bit of a change from Mercedes power to Ferrari power and essentially a Ferrari junior team. And I was struggling with the second driver because I have heard rumors that Raikkonen is retiring at the end of the year and plans to announce it on Monza. Those are only rumors that I've heard and seen on social media, so who knows whether they're true. But I was thinking, well, will Giovinazzi stay in F1? Will Alfa Romeo keep him? Or will they move Mick Schumacher up from Haas to Alfa Romeo after just 1 year and then maybe bring in Callum Ilott into Haas?
Ooh.
Or do they keep, or Haas keep Schumacher and Mazepin as I think they're both in contract? And does Callum Ilott come straight into Alfa Romeo to replace Raikkonen or Giovinazzi? And does Bottas not have a place on the grid? So, I think there's a lot of speculation
Interesting.
about which drivers are going to be racing for Alfa Romeo in 2022. But I think Bottas deserves to be in F1 because, yes, he's been second driver to Hamilton, but Hamilton's one of the greatest of all time. I don't think many people will argue that. I think Bottas is still a quality driver, not on the level of Hamilton, but still good enough to have a career in F1. I don't think he deserves to be dropped at all because, let's face it, there are worse drivers than Bottas currently in Formula One, namely
Say
Latifi, Mazepin, Stroll.
say say that Bottas does get a seat in Alfa Romeo. in a race, where could you see him finishing highest?
I reckon he could be pushing for top tens. I reckon Bottas top 15 definitely.
Hmm.
But if there's a bit of rain around, then maybe top 10, or if one of the big three has a poor weekend, then maybe Bottas could sneak a few points for Alfa Romeo. That's the way I see it. I don't think I've said who's going to be Bottas's number two in 2022, but I've gone exactly the same as you, Bottas and Giovinazzi,
Mm.
for Alfa Romeo, with also the sort of caveat that Mick Schumacher will move up into one of the Alfa Romeo seats in 2023.
Future
Yeah, just the
Ferrari driver.
future Ferrari driver, 100%. Now, just rounding off the grid, Haas, Schumacher, Mazepin. As I said, both those in contract, and then Williams. Again, I did have a little think about, well, Latifi will stay. I'm fairly sure about that. But then, who could be the number two driver? Could it be someone like Nick de Vries, for example? Is he
Ooh,
going? Is he going to make the move from Formula E, where he's just won the championship? Remember, just become Formula E world champion.
but then his
Or
EQ team are leaving.
that's a good point. Yeah, Mercedes EQ are leaving at the end of next year, 2022. So maybe we could see that in a couple of years. But I've gone for Jack Aitken, same as you, because I think he's one of their sort of academy drivers. I was thinking about, oh, do I go Roy Nissany, who's their test driver? But I'm not sure. I think Aitken raced for them where I think it was Sakir when Russell moved up to Mercedes because Hamilton tested positive for COVID, and then just as all sorts of driver changes in Bahrain last year. Last year, was it last year? It was last year, yeah. Yeah, I think it's just great to have another British driver on the grid, Jack Aitken.
Yep.
He did
Is he
okay
in
from
the
what I
F1? Is
remember.
he in the F1 game? Aiken.
He might be as an F2 or F3 driver. I can't remember which Formula he's racing for, Jack Aitken. I think it's F2. I've got no idea which team
Oh.
in F2. But yeah, he's been sort of a Williams Mercedes Academy driver, I think. Don't quote me on that. Yeah, raced in Sakir, was doing okay, and then I think sort of knocked one of the curbs or the barriers, knocked his front wing off, and then had to retire. I think it'd be good to see Jack Aitken in Formula One because I think he's a good driver. I don't see Nick de Vries coming over from Formula E into F1, and to be honest, I don't really know who else Williams and Mercedes have got in their sort of academy setup.
Yeah,
So
I don't know
I couldn't
either.
really think of anyone else besides Jack Aitken.
Yeah, yeah, and that's about that. And now we move on to the Dutch Grand Prix this weekend. Welcome, Zandvoort. I think so. Yeah, just a few facts about Zandvoort. The first Grand Prix was in 1952. 72 laps with a race length of 4.259 kilometers and a race distance of 306.648 kilometers. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see Zandvoort on the grid finally. It wasn't there last year. I think it was postponed.
Yeah, postponed last year.
So, and it can only mean one thing: Max Verstappen.
Yeah,
A sea of
the
orange.
Flying Dutchman.
Flying Dutchman. Yes.
Flying Dutchman in a sea of orange as well. That's quite
A
apt,
sea
isn't
of
it?
orange. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just going to be a great sight, isn't it? Just the stands awash with people wearing all orange. Max will wear his usual orange cap for Red Bull. Maybe we'll have a different helmet, maybe a bright orange helmet or something
Yeah.
for his home Grand Prix. The organisers, I think, have changed the speed limit signs around Zandvoort to sort of Max's stylized 33. Whether they've actually changed the speed limit to like 30 mile an hour or 33 kilometers an hour, I don't know. But it just shows how F1 mad the Netherlands is since Max got into F1 because
Yeah.
we didn't see that over here for like Silverstone. They didn't change the speed limits to like 77 or
44.
63 or 40. Not not 77, 44. Sorry, Lewis. Or 4 for Norris.
Oh yeah. Well, do you know how slow that would be?
Yeah, very slow.
Very.
Just like holding the clutch up in first gear. Just go, oh, 4 mile.
Yeah.
Oh, Lando Norris is about somewhere. But I mean, I don't think Italy will do that for Giovinazzi. Change theirs to 99.
Oh goodness. No, 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 no.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Zandvoort. From
Yeah.
what I've heard, overtaking opportunities aren't great, but it's just refreshing to have a new track on the calendar. I
Hmm.
think rather than a classic track at that. I've seen footage of it on the F1 games, which is obviously different to real life. Um, but we've got the bank curve, something we haven't seen in F1 for a while since I think Indianapolis. So that'll be something I'm looking forward to seeing. As for who's going to win it, I'm not too sure. I mean,
Hmm.
well, having said that, I think it's going to be Max. Now that I've said that,
Right
yeah,
then, race
I'm
winner
looking
Max
forward to it.
Verstappen.
Yeah, that's my get that out of the way already.
Yeah.
Race winner Max Verstappen.
Um, but yeah, okay then. Predictions as it is. Pole sitter. Well, unless Max Verstappen has like, you know, done like a quick clap behind the scenes that we don't know about, then I'm gonna say pole is very open. Lewis
Could
Hamilton,
be, yeah. I
Verstappen,
think
Bottas.
I think there's also going to be some rain around, just to throw that out there
Oh,
as well. There could be more rain in Zandvoort. Hopefully, not as much rain as in Spa, but I think there
yeah.
will be a bit of rain around from what I've heard. So could spice things up again this weekend.
Hmm. But Sergio Perez for pole. Hmm. How would that look?
I reckon it looked pretty good.
Really? Sergio Perez
Wow,
for pole?
I don't know. Um, I mean, given the way he drove at Spa in the wet, if it's wet at Zandvoort, then Perez doesn't really have much hope crashing his car out on the formation lap. Um, I reckon it's tricky. I think pretty much every week I've said either one of Hamilton or Verstappen.
Yeah.
I don't think I've said Bottas. I haven't said Perez.
Yeah.
Could be George Russell on pole. You never know. You never know
I mean, after
if
what
it's
he
a
did
wet
at the weekend,
qualifying.
I don't see why not. After what
If
he
it's a wet
did,
qualifying, it could well be.
going P2, I don't see why not. Okay. Lando Norris. Just because there's another sea of orange and it's not just Max
It's
Verstappen.
not
Right.
just for Max.
Here we go. Pole sitter, Lando Norris in a McLaren. Race winner,
That is a
Max
bold shout.
Verstappen. Yeah. I'm gambling on it.
Driver of the day.
I don't know. I don't know.
Just pick
I don't
anyone,
know.
any one of the 20.
Oh, all right then. Pierre Gas. No, I'm not going Pierre Gasly.
No, not Gasly.
No. You know what? Vettel. Let's go Vettel.
That's a good shout, I
Vettel.
reckon. Yeah, I think he had a good qualifying as well. Um, so I can't remember where, but I think he was top 5 or top 6 from memory. I think. um, right,
He's had a pretty good
Pole.
season.
He
Vettel.
started off a bit slow, but he's caught up quick and has had just a stellar last few races. I mean, he would have got P2 in Hungary if not for insufficient fuel at the end.
I still don't
Um,
understand that one. To be honest, I don't.
Nor do I really. I don't
I don't
see
understand it.
it was about half a litre short or whatever. So I don't get why they effort. But rules are rules anyway. Um, Pole position. Hmm. Hmm. If it's wet, then it could be different. But I think I'm going to go Max Verstappen again. I know I've gone him and Lewis pretty much the whole time, the whole season.
Same
But
here.
I think it will be Max. I just don't really see anyone besides Verstappen or Hamilton getting pole. If it's wet, then maybe it could be like a Lando Norris, as you said. It could be a Perez. It could be a Vettel. But I'm just not. I think Max is still a better driver in the rain on his home Grand Prix. He'll want to put on a performance as well. I think that will spur him on, give him a bit more confidence, motivation to get pole. I think he'll get the race one as well, as I said earlier. I think he's got the unofficial lap record around Zandvoort as well, in like a
Really?
2013 spec Red Bull car a few years ago. Yeah.
In a
Um,
Toro Rosso,
no,
or
no, no,
was it
no,
an
no.
actual Red
It
Bull?
was in like some sort of exhibition
Oh,
thing. Yeah, in just like an old Red Bull car. Um, so I think he's got the sort of unofficial lap record. Um, I think yeah, pole and race winner Max Verstappen, driver of the day. Um, let's go for Fernando Alonso.
Fernando Alonso.
Why not?
Good
Yeah,
shout. That's a
for no real reason whatsoever, other
sensible.
than he's
I would
driving the
say it's a
midfield.
sensible one. Sensible choice. Sensible choice. But yeah, I think that brings us to the end of the another episode of the AfterBurners podcast. Um, hopefully, racing in the Netherlands will go ahead. Hopefully, it will go ahead, and the rain, if there's any, won't be as bad as Belgium in Spa. But yeah, I've been your host, Samuel Oni, and it's a goodbye from me. Bye bye. And it's goodbye from Wes.
Bye bye.
And hope you enjoy the race this weekend in the Netherlands.